Good afternoon, everybody on YouTube Live. We'll start welcoming you here in just a minute. Thank you for coming. My name is Mark, and we're going to get started today. We're going to talk about the powerful words in an RFP. Hello, everyone. I'm going to start welcoming you here to Gov School today, where we're going to be talking about powerful words in an RFP. I think is something I'm always asked for. What words do we really want to put in that RFP? And I'm going to kind of walk you through that today. I do ask that as I'm letting everybody in, if you maintain your mute status, it should come on automatically on mute, but if not, it really just helps everybody in the background. And so please just tap that mute and that'll help everybody, okay? We'll slow down here in just about a couple minutes after the hour, and then I'll get started. But until then, we'll just continue to let folks into the room. It's a good Wednesday afternoon here in Atlanta. We have a recording of this that's going to be available on YouTube Live just right after. It will be there for you. I don't allow recording of this session. Thank you. Chat is, because we're on YouTube Live, the chat is disabled for privacy reasons. So we'll open it up whenever we go off YouTube Live. That'll allow you to ask some questions directly in chat. In the meantime, if you do have questions and you feel comfortable asking, you can certainly just raise your hand, technically speaking, and I'll call on you as we go along, and I'll try to answer those questions. It just helps out with maintaining your privacy. I do allow you to unmute. Still coming in at a steady pace. Let's just give everybody a few minutes to come in. Okay. We try to make this a completely free session so it attracts everybody's interest when you don't have to pay. So, one of the first things that you read in an RFP is the date things are due, and that's always important because about 5 o'clock I'll get a whole other bunch of folks coming in, and there'll be a 4 p.m. Central or something. And so here we are Eastern time today. Still coming in at a good pace. As you're coming in, I'll just continue to mention that we're recording this live on YouTube. Some of you are already on YouTube. I can't answer the questions in YouTube until after. If you want to type those into the comment box, I'll be glad to try to answer questions. I do not allow recording this particular session because it is available on YouTube Live, and you can download there and you can go over there and just keep that there. That's for privacy reasons. Okay. Slow it down just a little bit. Now we're here at about 50. Hope everybody's doing well today. My name is Mark Knowles, and I'm going to be your instructor today, or your leader to this process. And I'm going to share with you some background about myself and why we do this kind of information in just a minute. If you do have questions, this is the time to ask those questions regarding RFP writing, RFP contracting, and just in general. I'll be the one who can answer those. I do have the chat box disabled right now because of privacy reasons. You don't want everything just blaring across YouTube forever, and so I get that, and I want to make sure you feel comfortable, and I'll open that up when we go off YouTube Live. Still coming in. So I want to wait until it slows down just a few minutes. Okay. Then we'll get started. We'll spend about an hour together today. And that should be a good time to kind of get you the knowledge level. And I started off today talking about specifically about powerful words. Words are really important when you're responding to an RFP. And you can start thinking of some of those words in a few minutes, but I'm going to give you really two words that I think are the most powerful. And it's not thank you. And thank you is always good. So, but it's not that. Always make sure you put that into your cover letter. So thank you. Slowing down just a little bit. And it's 4:03, so let's get started. So first of all, Gov Directions, we're here today in our Gov School series. So this is a service that we started. We've been doing this for a while. We started our service back in 1998, and then we launched our Gov School early 2000 because it wasn't just finding the bids, which is important, and pointing where they're at, because it's a $7 trillion marketplace. You can be overwhelmed somewhat quickly if you're just everywhere. And so it's important that you learn how to pinpoint and find those bids that you can respond to. But just as importantly, how to respond to them, how to win them. And that's where Gov School comes in. And we have classes, and you can just go onto our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Gov Directions. And you should find hundreds of hours of videos that we have pulled together for you to help you in this field. And also just individualized. You can come into our system and Zoom with us and talk with us. And I'll be glad to chat with you and ask you and help you with some questions related to government contracting. My background, I enjoy this very much. In fact, I've been doing this for right at 30 something years. I think he's supposed to stop at 25 years, but I've been doing it a while. I've actually won some 400 contracts in 34 states. So I've got some experience on both sides, not only finding, but actually going out there and winning them. And then more recently, last 6 or 7 years, I've been a professor, where I teach at the graduate school level at the University of Georgia. I teach future RFP writers how to write those documents that you're responding to. In adjunct capacity, it's my alma mater, and I enjoy doing that very much. And so I just finished this semester. I do that about every other year for these future leaders. And that's why I'm here. And so what I want to do today, though, is I'm going to talk to you specifically about the structure of RFPs. And when I talk about RFPs, I'm going to kind of explain the differences. There's many different instruments that you could potentially work with the government and use with the government in order to contract with them as they engage in public-private relationship. I understand those. I just kind of casually just throw out the term RFP as request for proposal, just to keep it simple for you. But we'll talk about some of those individualized ones as we go through, and I'm going to identify the sections of those. And I'm going to focus specifically on a couple of what I think are very powerful keywords that you should probably use as often as possible whenever you're writing a response to an RFP. And remembering always, though, accuracy, brevity, clarity, the ABCs of response and technical writing, and that you want to make sure you keep that in mind on any time you respond back to the government on a response to what they're seeking. And I'm going to use an actual RFP as we get into. I'm going to try to dive into and find one in just a few minutes, and I'm going to ask you for some areas that potentially that you would like for me to see that, and I'll try to pull those together. Folks are still coming in, trying to keep my focus on both sides of this. So bear with me here. Okay, here we go. So, traditionally, let me get back to that worst slide. I use this for every slide, every presentation I do. Just remember, don't get frustrated. It's supposed to be hard. If it was easy, everybody would be out there doing it. But there's a reason why you're here at 4 p.m. Eastern on a Wednesday afternoon in a class to learn. Okay, and that's what it's all about. It's about getting out there and working to become the best at something. And this is a quote I use all the time. It's Tom Hanks' quote from A League of Their Own, where he was coaching a softball team, and it led them to really what it takes to be a victor, in the process. And just remember that. But when we're talking about contracting, the whole theory of the firm and why we contract with each other, Ronald Coase sort of evolved these concepts. But you have a subject matter expertise. The government needs you. It's more cost effective for them to do that, and they try to get your attention. And they use these instruments to do that. First, they'll have something like a request for information, where they're actually trying to find anybody who can help them in a particular area. Maybe asking for your qualifications, they're pre-qualifying you. Source of salt, that you can meet something that's specific really at the federal level. Just a simple invitation to quote. I get a lot of calls about micro purchasing, something like that. Something very simple, less than a threshold, so I can just make that transaction happen quickly. Those are there. Invitation to bid, more formalized. Request for bid. These are documents that you find where oftentimes the specs are tightly drawn. All they want you to do is to give them the price or some other pieces of information about that project or service or supply that you're you're going to engage with, but very somewhat simplified, very straightforward, allowing a comparative analysis. And then, of course, the request for proposal. The RFP itself is one of my favorites because that's really where you as a company get to shine. They want your subject matter expertise. They know what they're generally what they're trying to achieve and their objective, but you come in and you're able to help guide them because you have that capacity to do that, and they engage with you. But I always like to go back to the pure definition of what a request for proposal is when we're considering this, because it's important that you understand up front that it's a solicitation. Okay, they want a competitive response. A lot of times I get the inquiry that isn't this somewhat a done deal, Mark? When I look at this, it looks like it's written for my competitor. Well, it might have been written by your competitor, but usually when you find it in the marketplace, that means they want the competition. And so that's so that you got to put your best foot forward and you got a real good shot to win that. So I'd like to make that point. It's still a bidding process. I mean, you're competing against someone else, and it's done by someone, an agency or a company who wants to procure your service, your commodity, that valuable asset that they're seeking. Okay, and I use that word valuable because they put a lot of time and effort. Sometimes it takes a year in the making just to get to that RFP that you're looking at. So always take it seriously, and don't just it's out of hand. These are documents that there's been a lot of decision-making steps, a lot of individuals typically involved, city councils, maybe boards and commissions, the community as a whole. We're going through a budgeting process. So they've put a lot of effort, so you should too. And that's why they want a business proposal, something, take it seriously when you do it, build it in the right way. Always have a cover sheet, always have a cover letter. These are things that you would normally do to kind of help signal that you're taking it seriously, that you know what you're doing, and help build the confidence in that contracting officer who's seeking to engage with you. When you actually pick up an RFP, these are the primary areas that you're going to focus in on. The statement of work. I always go in, I start with that because that's the most important part. When you're looking at this kind of marketplace, it's so large and the types of opportunities. When you first look at the statement of work, it needs to speak to you. It needs to, I always say here, I always list the slide here. You're the one that I wanted to find. It needs to sing that song. That needs to be start in the back of your head by Coldplay. If it doesn't, then it's not the right one for you. You need to move on and just move on quickly and start looking for the one that does do that. Don't try to make an RFP or a bid fit you. Okay, you should fit it already. And if you don't, there's going to be one that does. I'd like to point that out. There's plenty of opportunities now. This coming year, we're going to start a new fiscal year for most local governments here, July 1. It's going to be the largest spending period in American history at the state and local government level. These governments have piles of they basically stacked up money, ready to spend it. They were kind of a little concerned. Now it's there. I saw numbers in Georgia that 10-15% higher than what it normally is. So it's going to be a very strong, robust fiscal year for government contracting. So make sure you got the right work. Then start looking at the technical specs. There, it doesn't have to be a perfect fit. You got to have a high degree of fit, but know that they're asking for a perfect situation. Oftentimes they're not able to get that. So don't always walk away from something because it's something that might be just slightly different. You go back in, ask some questions, ask them to make some modifications, things like that during the bidding process, or when you get in there, explain to them what you can do and what you can't do, and then maybe you'll rise to the top there. So always be clear in that. Schedule, paying attention to when things are due. Number one thing I hate to hear is this bid was due and it was due yesterday, okay? And then it's too late, or I missed the due date, or I missed the time by an hour. Pay attention. Like I said earlier, you'll be surprised at how many folks will log in at 5 p.m. thinking I meant 4 p.m. their time. And I said clearly 4 p.m. Eastern time. And then at 6 p.m. another round, because people just naturally you're busy in your business and you don't really quite catch it all the time. But when you're doing government contracting, you got to stay on schedule. Not only when you're actually responding to the RFP, but also when you're actually doing the work. And when you're doing the work, that's often the way you drive your profit and drive your payment and how you're going to make money in the process itself. So make sure the schedule works for you. And oftentimes in my line of work, for example, it's usually about a 6-month time frame where I'm working with the government. And in my particular area that I work, which is human resource management. So sometimes I have to expedite that. They want something done in 3 months. And so that costs them to do that. Not that I can't do it, but I use that as a barometer to know where my pricing is going to be at. And then look at your deliverables that you have to have, when it's going to be due, the schedule, and what has to be done. And that also will help drive your costing out and how you do that. And also how you factor out the pricing itself, okay? And your payment so that you can afford it. So if you get caught with something up front that you know that you're going to be able to cover that in a 30-day period or a 60-day period, know what those payment terms are. And then look at your contracts, read your contracts, because the government themselves very rarely would change anything in a contract. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen one that's changed. So know that what your terms and conditions are, how forbearance works, what happens if something goes wrong, and how are you going to resolve that. This is always where your true profit centers at, because you can lose your shirt if you get the wrong contract terms and conditions you can't live with. Format a proposal. The best thing about working with government contracting is they tell you what they're looking for. The government says, here's how we want you to do it. We want you to give me a cover page. We want you to give me an executive summary. It can't be more than 3 paragraphs. We want you to give me a 5-page document about how you're going to deliver the services that I'm seeking, but no more. It has to be in 12-point font. They're very specific, so know what the format of the proposal is when you start it. Okay, and if they don't, if they follow more standardized, I'm going to show you one here, more standardized process. And then qualifications and experience. Have the answers to these questions. One of the questions I always get is, I don't have any experience. I don't have any. Mark, brand new. Well, you're not brand new. Nobody is. You started your own company. You got some experience doing something. Know the answer to that question when you re-enter into any attempt to respond to an RFP. Practice, write it down, build it, and then sell yourself. There's nobody going to sell you like you sell yourself. I guarantee you that. Okay, that's a quote I lifted from General Alexander Haig from I think it was under President Reagan, and he always said that, sell your capabilities, have that ready. So even there in your qualification experience, have that capability statement ready to go that you can pull from it, and it speaks to what you're doing, and then you're able to send them a copy of it. So you give them a strong signal that they have confidence that you know what you're doing. And a cost breakdown. Understand how to price your marketplace. That's the first thing you really should do. If I was really kind of outlining the way I was going to set up my business and government contracting, the very first thing I would do is try to determine what kind of bids I'm looking for. Okay, understand that all the way to the point, as many points as you can get. I have about 10 to 14 items that I look for. For example, geography, potentially size of government, size of project, budgets, things like that. Okay, know where you're going to be at on that so that you can go in there. And then the second is how much I'm going to charge. Okay, cost it out so I make money. The government's not asking you to lose money to work with them. Understand what it takes to actually to not only break even but make profit. Okay, and do that in a way. I always do that number. How much should I be adding in terms of profit? That same amount you should be adding when you're looking at private sector. So you need to cover your costs. You need to add to it and make it a livable process. And so that's important. Know what that number is, and then do a comparative analysis of what it actually takes to win a project. In my business now, I know I always bid at about a 75th percentile rate, meaning that 75% of the companies bid lower than me. 25% maybe bid high. I'm always on target when I bid. And I don't bid lower than that because I've got some experience. And when I first started, I couldn't do that. Okay. And so I had to bid in a 25th percentile, meaning not that I'm 25% lower than everybody else. It means that I'm in a process where 75% are bidding higher, even if they're only $1 higher, they're still bidding higher. And then 25%, I'm not rock bottom low. I'm just right there in there. So that sends a signal also that I understand what I'm doing. Now, sometimes you're bidding on widgets and you got to be right there at the low price and still make money. And so you're squeezing every penny. And so you got to know what that is, but understand your cost. And then finally, the first thing you always do, right when I get the statement of work, I run down to evaluation criteria. How are they going to make the decision? I know in my class, in my graduate school class I teach, the very first day we spend almost an hour talking about how they're going to get an A. No, I've been doing this for 6 years. I never given anybody a B, but they all think I'm going to give them a B for some reason. They want to know exactly what it takes to get an A. And so it's helpful. It gives me time to kind of stress through what I'm looking for. But you should do that. So go in there and figure out what the points are to get that A, plus, in fact, to get 100, and then build that. Sometimes if you're brand new, you can't get all the points that you need on the qualifications or your experience. You might get a little bit lower, and so then you got to shave that cost a little bit in order to do that. So you got to gauge that. Now, cost is only 10%. I'm not going to shave it too much because that's not going to make that much of a difference. And so I'm going to understand that I'm going to try to sell myself on the other parts of it so you can understand what those are. But go in there and find out what that evaluation criteria is. And just remember, the first thing you want to do is that statement of work, make sure it's singing that song. You're the one that I wanted to find. And the way you really understand that is making sure you got your capabilities aligned the right way. Here's what I want to do. Sometimes I get frustrated And I could show it occasionally when I get questions like they come in, specifically when folks who want to do the middleman. They're not quite sure what they want to do, and that shows to the government too. When you're doing that, you gotta kind of have to understand where you're at when you come into this marketplace. I'm going to sell shoes. I'm going to be the best shoes salesperson there is to the government. Okay, understand what that is, and know that going into it, and making sure. Then you go out, then you look for those right contracts. Now, it doesn't mean that, hey, maybe I don't have that success in shoes. I need to start selling some shirts to get along with that. So that's fine. You can expand, but no, do it in a targeted way. Come in with your business plan, your business strategy ready to go. When you actually look at a bid, and I was just showing that the capability statement is a way to help make sure you do that. Make sure, because then you start aligning yourself with your NAICS codes and your keywords and your core competencies, and you'll you'll learn how quickly that you can actually come in and do that. Okay. And then tips here, read every time you go in and look at a proposal, read it from the start. Okay. Pay attention to the areas that I talked about. Okay. These are specifically not always aligned that way, but you'll find them there. Set it aside and think about it. Okay. Talk to your colleagues. Make sure you're a good fit. Don't do after something just to go after something. Oftentimes, folks I work with specifically, they get a little frustrated that it takes a little bit of time to get that first one, but you really need to have a perfect match on your first one specifically. As you get more and more, and you're bidding more and more, then you can decrease that a little bit, that match rate. Okay, you can get to partial match. Okay, and that's okay. But when you first start, you got to get a perfect match, and so spend a little bit more time up front, and then it'll pay off on the rear end side of things. Okay, and then complete your proposal at once in one setting. You'll try to do that in one setting. It takes a little bit of time usually, but you'll at least know everything that you need. The first things I always look for when I first go into it, I always look at the schedule. Okay, making sure I understand the specific dates and times that it's going to be there. When is my question Q&A that time? When is my due date? When is the pre-bid conference? Things like that. Okay, have that ready to go, and so that's important. And then the evaluation criteria is the second part of that. And then the third part is I'll go in there and see, does anything need to be notarized? Because you don't want these things to catch you at the end, that I got everything done. I got this one document. I only got an hour left, and I got to get it notarized, and I can't find a notary. Okay, and so you don't want to have that happen. Okay, so outline everything, and you do that by taking that first step, reading the entire proposal at first, and then and making sure you have that ready to go. Okay, and just remember that it doesn't matter if you got 30 days, 60 days, or 3 hours. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. I literally had a contract the other day. We learned about it in the morning. We had it out in the afternoon for one of our clients, and they won that contract. You got to be ready. You got to be ready. Sometimes it takes 60 days. You're letting things, you don't need to be doing it the first day you get it. You got to let it sit there. There'll be question and answer times. Got one client working on an agile document, agile technology document, and you have to wait because they've had 4 or 5 amendments to it, and it keeps getting extended out. And so that, so you don't want to fire it back too quick, and then you have to withdraw it and start over again. So take the time that you have, okay? And then use free tools. Use a Google Drive. Google Drive is really helpful. It's free. Develop your indicators of success. It saves you time. You can do that. Just type the words that you're looking for in a bid. Prepare your templates. Have them ready to go. Okay, you'll find it's the same thing over again. Save them. You don't have to do them beforehand usually. Save the one you did on the first. I'm all about experiential learning, where you do something and then you save it, and that becomes your boilerplate for the future. Okay, always do your price research. If you don't know how to do that, just a couple of videos online. But everything you do with government, the information is out there, so you can find out what somebody did before you. Government, it's very rare they come in and do something brand new the first time. It just doesn't have a lot. So if they're buying, we just a few minutes ago over with somebody with supplies, safety supplies. Somebody else they've already bought those 2 years ago, had a contract. So you can go in there and maybe have to factor up or something, make some slight changes, because we all know what's happened with inflation and how it's impacting us out there, and prices have went up. But you can go in there, you can make some very reasoned decisions on how you actually do a price and have that there. And then always update, stay on top of your game. Okay, keep documents, look at what happened with your competitors, watch the awards, and see who's winning. Okay, as I mentioned, we have a service where we actually do help, and we do the experiential writing process, working with our clients to get you to the stage. I take a different approach in the work we do here. It's more like a graduate school class. I want you in there. I don't want you to stay in the school and forever. And so we 2 to 3 months you out of it, and then you're moving on doing things yourself. And I like to have it set up that way, and in that process. And so you can learn about that. And just know that the only source of knowledge is experience. Okay, so we're going to dive in right now, and I'm going to start talking to you really about some powerful words that we have to do now. As you're going in, we don't want to leave yet. I'll come back to that side. But let's just take a look. Okay, first of all, RFP delivery. When you come in, this is our primary tool, geospatial tool, showing you all the bids that are out. We're monitoring bids, 74 countries, mostly the embassies and military bases. Once you sit outside that basin right there, everything else is down at the local and state level. Now, always remembering, once you step outside the defense contracting, there's about 20 local and state bids for every federal bid. So it's a very active marketplace. Okay, so that data is there. The ability to come in and do a geospatial tool. Also, always have your and I have a drive here built. Here, my drive where I'm working. Okay, and here's how I organize it. I'll show you. Here's a sample. I come in. I have my Dropbox where I have folks drop things to me. Okay, and so any kind of document, so they don't have to email me things. If I'm working with somebody collaboratively, they just go in there. I give them access to it. They can drop it in there, and that way you don't get caught up with email things. You miss something. You don't want to have that happen. Or I have my process that I'm flowing documents. I have my here. I call it Discover Directions in general. Just some files that I keep that more like my filing cabinet, but also my logos, things like that. I keep in there. And then I have some templates pre-built in here where I have my cover letter ready to go, my cover sheet, sample proposal, and I actually have something I refer back to. I actually wrote a little book here. In fact, I'll give everybody access to this real quick here if you want to copy this link. Let me make sure it's open to everybody. Let's see here, and you can go in there and you can download that. So this one particularly, anyone with a link, copy it. Okay, and I'll have this open during the session here. And you can go in there, and that's a document that I wrote with my daughter helped me write that to actually, and I'm opening up to everybody in meeting. There we go. So you can go in there and you can check that document out and download it. Okay. And this therefore you kind of explains to you how to read an RFP, what you're looking for in order to get actually develop that response. And then I have the slides here as well, and I can share that with you after the session if you have any of those interest. But your cover letter, your template here. When a typical one, you want to have it ready to go. I have my logo on here. I have the due date. It's always going to be the date. Here's going to go the due date, and then some basic information that you slide in there. Nothing complicated. This paragraph right here becomes the most important. This is the one I always, when I meet with my clients, I always say, tell me what's the best thing that you ever did. What's the biggest deal you ever did? And use that as the frame for that capability paragraph. Here's who I am. This is what I've done. I can translate my success to what I've had in the past to yours. And don't be bashful about it. This is where you sell yourself. Okay. The first paragraph is always there where you're going in there and you're explaining why you're responding to. Okay. Who you are as a company and the actual response information. And then the last one is you're going in and unfortunately I'm not allowing the recording of this. You can find the recording at YouTube afterwards. Here you can come in, you can do your basic certifications, affirmations. The government will typically tell you what the third paragraph should contain, and that's going to be within every RFP. And you can sign it in there. And I always like to personalize it with an address on there. And if you go into more than one page, not recommended. But if you do, make sure you take the very top and do a page 2 on that. Sometimes the government will tell you, I want everything in just a letter format, and then you do it, of course, that way. But if they don't do that, you typically want one letter. I think is a stronger way to do it. Be accurate and brief and be clear. Okay, don't ramble. Okay, I know some folks think the more information, if you go in there and you do a chat GPT letter, it can end up maybe pages and pages. You don't want that. In government contracting, you want it to be straightforward. You don't want to waste your time. You want to tell them exactly what they need to know, and that's it. Okay, and remember that your job is to get past the contracting officer. The first step. It's not to win the bid. It's to get past the contracting officer. And you do that by building the confidence that you're following instructions. And I like to stress that whenever I'm teaching this type of class. Okay, let me go in there and still get people coming in. Okay. Here we go. And then of course on your cover letter, that's something, and your cover sheet, something that's very simple to do. I'm going to show you one that I actually drafted recently. That you pull in here and you have it ready to go. The proposal response. Sometimes you'll use their logo at the top. Other times not. Sometimes I put a line if I do that. Just do a horizontal line image, let's see here, go ahead and drop it in. I use Google because it just makes it so much easier, okay, in the process. Going in, I always include my UEI, my cage code, and making sure the font is always the same. The other thing I'll see some folks do occasionally is they go in and they use some fancy font, okay? It's going to have some unusual lettering with it. And then you go in and you actually save it as Adobe, it doesn't catch it. And it's all jumbled up. You don't want to do that. Use something straightforward, keep it simple. Don't complicate things for yourself, okay? And use a font, usually Arial 12-point, unless they tell you something different, okay? And I keep it not necessarily double space, but going in, unless they say double space, almost always in my formatting, I go in and line spacing 1.15. It's easy to read, allows the ability for them to keep notes, things like that. Keep sections, okay? Your sections are here. You'll see here if I type in section 2, starts my table, okay? My table, I draft it in, use the headers, use the heading system that the government is asking for. Almost always they'll tell you how they want the sections. Sometimes they want it tabbed out and just tab it out. Other times they tell you, here's the heading of what I want to do. My executive summary, I drop it in. And what I like to do as I go along is always go back in and I'm formatting as I go. The heading 2, then come back in, and I may want to say in my executive summary, my location, and make that a subheader, and then go into executive sub level 3. And then I'm always going back in and so I'm saying Atlanta, Georgia, to keep it simple here. Okay. And I'm using that for a purpose. I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna capture everything, select all, and then always reformat. So it's 12 font, Arial, keeping it the same. Actually, I made a mistake there. Good thing about a service like this, if you do make a mistake, you hit undo. Oh, there it goes. Come back in. Okay. And I do that. And I really don't 12 points. So they did catch it though, but I accidentally hit delete by chance. Then I come back in my table content and then I run it and I update it and it updates. And that just builds, it's like momentum, keeps me going. Okay. I'm actually getting something done. Okay. Instead of I'm just looking at a blank piece of paper. Okay. And a lot of times I'm just copying and pasting from my templates and the same information. I've got this pre-written and then I'm dropping it in. Okay. And so here they want my name and business name. If I have a fictitious business name and so forth. Okay. So they're telling me what they want in the document that I'm looking at. And I'm pulling from that document. I'm paying attention to it. I read through it completely at first. I went through, I took a look at the documents they're looking for. And then I'm going to come back in, I'll fill in using sometimes the words that they use, my experience. Okay. And so what I wanted to do is give you 2 words that I think are the most powerful words that you can use in any proposal. Okay. Anybody have a clue? I know I got the chat off. Okay. Here it is. For example. Okay. Anytime you can give an example of your work, you've won the day. Okay. Take that opportunity every single time. These 2 words are the most powerful words. Nothing else. Okay. The government, and the reason why is because you're trying to do the whole overall thing. When you're doing this, at the very top, sometimes I write this. Build the confidence of the contracting officer. Okay. They want to know when they pass you through to the decision maker. I do that often. That you know what you're talking about. That they can count on you. They don't care if you charge too much sometimes. They do care. But they can handle that. They can negotiate the price with you. What they can't negotiate with you and they can't get over is whenever you don't follow instructions and you can't get it. And that's going to send a sign to them that you can't get the job done. Okay. It really is. So everything you do, you're trying to build the confidence of the contracting officer at first. Okay. And you do that by demonstration. In demonstration, the best way is using those words. For example, I did this. For example, I did that. And you can't use it enough in an RFP. Okay. Just to know that each of these items you go have. You pay attention to all the items. This particular one that I looked at on Hillsborough, they gave me exactly what they wanted. It was 13, I think 12 steps. And I built my entire proposal out using that. Okay. And I'm going to show you really kind of how some of them can look. This is one I recently did that I actually wrote for myself. This is actually RFI that I respond to a vendor database. That's what we do, in our work. And I wanted to respond to this. It may or may not end up in a contract. You always come in. It's for the state of Tennessee. I didn't use their logo there because they didn't really have one unique one specifically for this particular project. And so I just more generic there, kept that at the top. Use my logo. Frankly, they know what their logo is. All you can do is mess it up most likely. So use your logo. Your logo is important. It's important. Always use the due date. Okay, on the date. Everything should always be dated, and that's important that you do that. Okay, you can have in here your address, how to get in touch with you, contact. Always use your person contact name, email address, and phone number. And then always put my UEI. That is also a way to send a signal that you've already got yourself set up. Maybe if you're not familiar with UEI, that's the unique entity ID at the federal government system. And even though this bid here is only at the state level, they didn't ask me for my UEI. I still put it in there because it sends a sign that I'm ready. Now, this particular case here, this isn't my final one. I'm just getting to it, but it's and I'll see if I can pull that up. But it's I would put in my actually state of Tennessee number as well. Okay, my unique entity ID there too. And so this document here was when I just started the layout. Let me see if I can pull up the actual one I submitted. And as I do that, I'm going to turn everything into a PDF document. I'm going to save it on my main drive. This one was due on the 20th, wasn't it? And I'm going to share with it on my PDF version because I'll move everything together. Okay. And I'm going to have me a letter written, be professional directly to the person. Okay. And I'm on the first paragraph about who I am and why I'm bidding. Second paragraph, what all we've done. We're innovative. We're great. We do a good job. Okay. My signature, my letter, my email, all one page. How to get in touch with me there. Okay. Going in, responding, putting in my Tennessee number, my 10 tax ID number, things like that. Okay. And pull in the details. Okay. And so going into the process of actually bidding, now I've built it out, names of individuals, details, our understanding of the project, always put that up front on mine. There are some people start with the executive summary, but I always put up front, here's what I understand you're asking for. Okay, so I know that we've got a good match. And then I'm going into the executive summary, two paragraphs, right straight in there is what I want to say. I can say in 2 paragraphs. I'm not going to belabor it. Okay, details of individuals going in, secure access, have details of actual product, details going in, following the same format that they actually did. In fact, I went in and actually put what they asked for in italics. So I just remind them. Okay, and so I have it ready to go. All the information that they're going to need, straightforward. Ends up being a 22-page document. We wrote this in a weekend. Okay, we were ready to go on it in that process. And so that's a sample one. As you come to really a 40-minute mark, I just want to leave on the overall process of how to actually search and find in our system. When you come in, you can actually do it by a Google type of search, going in with a Boolean search technique. Okay, and finding the bids, pinpointing is always key. And so what I'm looking, if I was looking at database on that one there, I would come in, I would search, which is a keyword, would then pull up, knowing that in our system, first of all, nothing we have is speculative. Okay, so it's all active. You're not wasting your time. When you find any bid, it's going to be something you can respond to. It's there. The second is we don't work specifically with any government. Governments are allowed to come and post. About 80% of our bids are posted directly by government in some capacity through an API or through direct posting on an announce system. But they reach our audience, some 127,000 of you that use us. And you can download this information in the App Store of Google, each of these, and have free access, of course, to any federal bid, state, local bid. It requires a higher level of authentication. You step in, and then you can actually log in and see the details of any individual bid. Log in. Okay. Straightforward. And then you're able to go about the details of learning about the bid and responding to the bid. Okay, so with that, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody on YouTube. And thank you for watching this. And I'm going to open up the chat box, and I'm going to open up the ability for those in the classroom to actually ask some questions. So hold with me while I disconnect from YouTube Live. Thank you for visiting us on YouTube.